That's what Albert Pike said.
Right.
Okay.
I quoted that from Morals and Dogma. If you want the exact page, I can give it to you.
Yeah, no, I'm just curious because I've been following Zechariah Sitchin's work.
You good?
Zechariah Sitchin?
Mm-hmm.
You probably haven't heard of him. He's been researching the ancient texts of the Sumerians and so forth. But the name is very pronounced the same way, Yahweh, or Yahweh.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. I was just curious when I had heard that.
I'm just telling you what Pike says.
Okay.
And what he's saying is, if you really want to be free, then you worship the devil. That's where you get liberty. And that's why people worship Satan, because now they can become gods. They can create a perfect society without God. They can create a new world order. And that's what they're all about. They are going to create a one new world utopian order without God.
Okay. My other question is this: do you think the Masons are following similar traditions of the Egyptians?
Yes, this all goes back. I mean, the Masonry goes back to Gnosticism. It goes back to the Kabbalah. It goes back to the mystery religions. And have you ever read Albert Pike, Morals and Dogma?
No, sorry,
It's a fascinating book. You can usually find it in used bookstores. It's been actively suppressed. Every Mason is supposed to turn it back into the lodge, but often when they die, they just give it to a used bookstore. And you can find a copy, or you can come up to my library and spend a couple of weeks reading it. But he will explain to you this all has to do with the mysteries, and that's what the significance of the symbol is on the back of the dollar bill. We, as a nation, have gone over to the dark side. Now, you have to understand that from the very inception of America, there have been two forces at work. One was the Masonic occult mystery religion, and the other was the Christian. And the Christian predominated, really, up until the time of Roosevelt, and then, of course, in 1935, under the urging of Henry Wallace, the Secretary of Agriculture, why they put that symbol on the back of our dollar bill, and we've been going down ever since then, as the occult influences have simply overwhelmed the Christian influences in this country. And it's about time the Christians stood up, because there are a lot more of us than there are of them.
Yeah,
and we've got right, and we've got God on our side, but we don't call on Him, and are we really worthy of His intervention?
Well, the thing that has bothered me is that people always say, leave it to God, leave it to God. And I know Gary Schnell will comment on this briefly, but I am of the opinion that, and I'm looking for this in the scriptures too, that says that we have to act with God in order to make change. And that's what my position is.
Well, I think that we are to act, and we're to pray to God. And we're not going to get Him to intervene. He's going to intervene when He's good and ready to. Right. We can't tell Him what to do. Maybe we may want to. Occasionally, when I'm under demonic attack, I can actually use my power as a Christian to defeat that demonic attack. I think anybody can who really loves the Lord. But we are involved in a spiritual battle, and we're just little grains of sand down here, but we just do our best. We're called to be the salt and the light of the earth. We're called to recognize that we struggle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the forces of the darkness of this earth, against spiritual wickedness in high places. And what are we to do? Put ye on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all to stand. And boy, have you ever seen more evil days than we have right now.
Definitely.
Okay.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you. Yes. Ephesians 6.
I was waiting for someone else to ask this, but I guess I'll have to do it. Where do Washington and Jefferson and Adams fit into your scheme?
All right. Washington was a Mason, but he was not into the occult aspect of it at all. He was a sincere Christian. And as he began to, he attended some Masonic meetings early on, but he wasn't a regular attendee, and I don't think he ever recognized the occult influence. He certainly wrote letters condemning the influence of the Illuminati, which was trying to get into America in the 1790s. So, in my estimation, Washington was a good Christian, but you have to understand that when America was founded, this was a treasonous act of treason against the crown, and these men's lives were in danger, and so many of them went into the Masonic Lodge because here they could have secret meetings and they could plot the overthrow of the British monarchy without fear of exposure. At least they hoped that. Now, Thomas Jefferson was a Mason, and he really was involved with all of the with the occult, really. He believed in a deity but he didn't believe in Jesus Christ, although he called himself a Christian, and I have his writings where he did. He did not believe that Christ was God, nor in the supernatural. If you ever read the Jefferson Bible, you see what he really believed. I believe Adams was a Christian. In fact, Adams had a falling out with Jefferson because of his Masonic beliefs, and certainly Adams felt very, very strongly that Jefferson was betraying this dream that they had of creating a Christian republic. So you see this conflict. Certainly Benjamin Franklin was strongly involved with the occult, as was Thomas Paine. And we could talk about the secret Georgia Guidestones, which I mentioned last time I was here, in Elberton, Georgia, this occult monument back in Georgia, which is really dedicated to Thomas Paine. If you read the background in the books we've uncovered since then, Thomas Paine was brought to America by Benjamin Franklin. Thomas Paine then was a professional revolutionary who went to France to create the revolution there. In fact, the whole world revolutionary movement has its foundation in the occult. America was the only nation that had a revolution where we had a strong Protestant ethic, and America then created a free society. In France, they had the revolution, and they went right back into dictatorship. The same thing happened in all the countries of Europe.
I think you said Washington and Adams were Trinitarians. You believe that?
Beg pardon?
You believe Washington and Adams were Trinitarians?
No, I don't think so. I think Adams was probably a Unitarian, but I think that he believed in the divinity of Christ, and I believe that George Washington did. But they may not very well have been the Trinitarian beliefs of today.
I'll try one more and sit down. You think then that you can rally the United States of America by disowning Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Paine, and those people?
Well, I don't think that we can rally them behind Jefferson, because I think Jefferson was involved in the occult. And I think what we have to recognize is these two parallel tracks I talked of. And we have to be objective, and we have to be informed, and we have to talk about the occult and Masonic influence that has been here since the inception of America. Some people will tell you America is a Masonic republic. It's not. But there has always been this Masonic influence. And if you go back and you look at the streets of Washington, D.C., you'll see that they are laid out in Masonic symbology. And every one of the buildings back there has a Masonic plaque on it. The Masons are here, and they're working like termites. Only the foundations of our republic now are fairly well eroded.
Do you know anything about James Clerk Maxwell?
No, I don't.
The unified field theory?
No.
Or anything about our mathematics being changed so we couldn't advance scientifically at the turn of the century like we should have?
That's not my field, sir.
Okay, well, I'll just ask, do you think Teddy Roosevelt was originally a fairly good president, but he was bought off to run against Taft?
I think he was into this whole Masonic thing. If you read Arthur Schlesinger, he will tell you that Teddy Roosevelt was our first aristocrat. He was part of this whole movement. Now, we have an image of Teddy Roosevelt. That's our image, but sometimes our images are not reality. It's sort of symbolism over substance. They create our images for us. I love the image of Teddy Roosevelt, this rugged individualist out there, fighting the battle at San Juan Hill and shooting the bears. But he really believed in this whole idea of an aristocracy ruling the masses, just as his namesake Franklin Delano Roosevelt did. But I'm drawing upon what Arthur Schlesinger says, and Arthur Schlesinger Jr. is part and parcel of this whole movement, knows a lot more about it than I do. I wish that the image we had of Teddy Roosevelt was true, but I'm afraid it's not. We have many idols with clay feet.
Doctor, there are no more questions. We want to thank you for coming this evening.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Your pages.